Welcome to another edition of Who's Better Baseball, the podcast where we answer a simple question on each show. Who's better at baseball? I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein, the managing editor at justbaseball.com, and this week I just wrote an article that went up on the site where we were breaking down the top 10 first basemen in the game. And if you don't know how we came to consensus on these lists, there was 5 of us in a 4.5-hour Zoom call, and we debated each person on the list, from a Paul Goldschmidt and a Freddie Freeman on top to and I actually think Freeman was 1, if I'm checking back. Correct. Freeman was 1, Goldschmidt was 2, and then you work your way down the list to Pete Alonso at 3 and Vlad Guerrero Jr. at 4. I was not alone in that assessment. That's why I feel like, once again, on Who's Better Baseball, my own show, it's time to call the isolation play, not bring anyone else on. I want the ball in the low post here when I'm talking about first baseman, why I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt that Pete Alonso is better than Vlad Guerrero Jr. And, we'll just go through what I wrote in the article for a second as a starting point for this conversation. Since making his debut in 2019, there is not a player in baseball that has hit more home runs than Pete Alonso. His 146 long balls paced first baseman by over 20, with Matt Olson coming in second at 123, Paul Goldschmidt 103 coming in third. Pete Alonso also leads Major League Baseball in runs batted in since 2019, with 380, beating out Jose Abreu. Last year, Alonso hit 300 with a 424 on base and a 675 slugging with runners in scoring position, posting a 187 WRC plus in those spots. With men on base, we saw Pete Alonso cut his strikeout rate by 10%, because when there's a man on base, what does Pete not want to do? Strike out. So if he has the bases clear, he might still be swinging for the fences. But when there is runners on base and Pete Alonso gets in a 2-strike count, we saw a ton last year, he shortens up, he tries to find a hole, he tries to get a knock to drive in a run, and that is why he was tied with Aaron Judge, who hit all those home runs, for the most runs driven in last year on 131. Simply put, Pete Alonso is the best run producer in baseball. Now you look at Vladdy, and what he does at his peak might be the best hitter in the sport. When Vlad Guerrero Jr. was at his apex in 2021, he went out, for all intents and purposes was the most valuable hitter. There was just a guy named Shohei Ohtani that did both hitting and pitching. He had 48 home runs, a 166 WRC plus. For those of you who don't know, weighted runs created plus measures hitters based on a league average of 100. So he was 66% better than your league average hitter. He walked 12.3% of the time. He got on base at a 401 clip. He was unbelievable. But last year, that walk rate dropped back to his normal walk rate of about 8%. And that saw his on-base percentage get cut by 60 points. So who is he? Is he 2021 Vladdy? Because if he's 2021 Vladdy, all right. But, 2019, 106 WRC plus, 339 on base percentage. 2020, shortened season, but another sample size where his on base percentage was 329. His WRC plus was 110. Last year, he hit 274. On base percentage was 339. Again, the exact same thing it was in his rookie season in 2019. So is he going to continue to be a guy that gets on base at a 340 clip? If that's him, it's still an amazing hitter. Last year, 32 home runs, 97 driven in, a 132 WRC plus. He still had a good year, but it's not Vladdy from 2021 that was damn near an MVP, that hit over 300 and got on base at a 401 clip. That's a different guy. There's just been more consistency with Pete Alonso's game. That's the big difference here. Is Pete Alonso, it's a rookie season where he comes up, gets on base at a 358 clip, hits 53 home runs in the juice ball season, granted, but still as a rookie, was awfully impressive. Drove in 120, a 144 WRC plus. Had a down year in the shortened season, but was coming around near the end of the year and still found a way to hit 16 home runs in 57 games to post a 120 WRC plus. And granted, like I said, the OBP was down 326, but I think if he had more time that year, Alonso would have had a normal season. And then in 2021, gets on base at a 344 clip, 133 WRC plus, 37 bombs. Last year, the 40 bombs, 352 on base, 143 WRC plus. When we look at first baseman, dating back to 2019 when both these guys debuted. The top two guys when it comes to offensive WAR, when it comes to the offensive stat, if you go to Fangraphs, OFF, this is a cumulative stat that really is gauging a player's offensive value. Atop the league, we have our number one first baseman in baseball according to our top 10 list, Freddie Freeman, at 149.8. Number 2, Paul Goldschmidt, 129.2. Number 3, Pete Alonso, 95.4. Number 4 is Matt Olson, 79.6. Number 5, Vlad Guerrero Jr., 72.5. Across their first, 4 seasons here, with about 500 games of a sample, and with very close to each other in plate appearances, a little over 2,200 for Pete, over 2,100 for Vladdy. These guys have put up a very representative sample size. Pete Alonso has been the better offensive player and the more valuable player based on wins above replacement, 11.9 to 9.1. Defensively, they both, bring, a little bit of a bad glove to the position. But they've both improved enough where neither one of them is a liability. You can put them out there at first base. You don't have to worry about them being a DH. And for guys that at one point we didn't think they would have a position, that really is an incredible thing. So bottom line, we have a lot of great first basemen in baseball. If you look at our list, really I think it goes about 6 deep, because after our top 4, you got a Matt Olson, who we know what he's capable of in Atlanta now. And then you still have Jose Abreu, who's been doing it forever. And then I think there's a drop-off when you get to the Christian Walkers and Vinny Pasquantino, who could be amazing, but still has to establish himself and down along the line. But that top 4 really is as good as it gets. Freeman and Goldschmidt are the guys that deserve to be atop the list and to remain atop the list for some time. But Pete Alonso and Vladdy, these are the guys that you probably would bet on the most over the next 5-6 years to continue to be putting up MVP type seasons as sluggers. And any year, either one of them can be vaulted ahead. Last year, I don't have it in front of me, but I'd imagine that we had Vladdy ahead of Pete and might have been atop our list of first basemen. He probably was behind Freddie Freeman still because of Freddie Freeman's consistency. But when Goldschmidt wasn't coming off an MVP season, you could have made the argument that Vladdy was second because of how good he was in 2021. This year, Vlad Guerrero Jr. comes up and he hits, 49 home runs, and he has a 175 WRC plus, and he gets on base at a 380 clip because he hit over 300 and he started to walk over a 10% clip again. Would I be surprised? Absolutely not. But I'd also be a lot more surprised that Pete Alonso didn't hit 40, didn't drive in 120, and didn't post a WRC plus over 130, because he has consistently been that guy. And that is why Pete Alonso is better than Vladimir Guerrero Jr. going into the 2023 season, because over their sample of their career, Pete Alonso has consistently been better. He's hit more home runs than anyone. He's driven in more runs than everyone. So he's the top run producer in the game, and I'm not just saying that because I'm the Mets guy. I'm saying that because that's what the stats would tell us. We'll see if this year things change, but bottom line, we want to watch these guys mash baseballs as soon as possible, and opening day can't come soon enough. Luckily, we get to see them on the world stage as well in the WBC. So that's going to be all, though, for this edition of Who's Better Baseball. We got top third baseman in the game when it comes to our top 10 coming up next. We'll see if we find a good comparison there to dive into between two of these third basemen as we continue to break these down. And I also will be coming out with my top 10 infields later this week, and that'll probably relate to Friday's show. As always, thank you for listening. Make sure you follow us, rate us, review us wherever you get your podcast. Make sure if you're watching on YouTube, you subscribe. Tell me who you think is better, Pete Alonso or Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And make sure you continue to follow all the great written content we have coming up every single day at justbaseball.com.